Welcome to today's show. It's going to be a great episode today. But before we start, I gotta remind you of our 100 subscriber giveaway. It's happening this Friday. So click on this thumbnail to watch that video. So on that video, you can learn how to enter the giveaway yourself and see what we're winning. The instructions to enter the giveaway are in the description box of that video right there. And I hope you win. And now we begin episode 3 of Super Fast Tortoise.
Oh, I could probably think of a few reasons to stick around.
You want to go through all of...
Andy cast unexpected results.
3,
An interesting first pick. Emmerich, the Eon's torn.
2,
And today for the weather forecast.
1,
Today let's talk about cube design.
go. Alright, first, I have to admit one thing. I have to admit this video took too long to write. See, the first draft was not succinct enough. And the second iteration was way too long to be a script. And as I tinkered down a few other scripts over and over again, and I was finally able to break it down into this script. See, I have a very bipolar brain. I can write for hours just talking really in depth about a subject I know. I can get really deep and detailed in whatever I'm talking about, to the point where I'm just splitting hairs and repeating myself over and over again. And if I didn't know myself better, I would have settled on a bad script and simply not even understand that it was complete jank. See, I know this because I know how to look at my work without being biased. And that's just a part of my own habitual behaviors. See, I've worked really hard on scripts before and messed up way too many times. Having to go back and correct my work, being forced to take down my own videos and rewrite scripts previously. This kind of dedication for perfectionism has become a part of my very own habitual behaviors. See, I've shaped my habitual behaviors, and in all this, what I just walked you through, just explained to you, is just a small taste of today's topic. If I could explain the importance of today's subject, I would explain it like this. As people, we rely on facts. Facts are important to us. If we know about something to be true, we care about it more. And if we don't know about something, how can we care about it if we don't know that it exists? And knowing about habitual behaviors is a very useful tool. And if you don't know about habitual behaviors, we can't even garner the benefits of habitual behaviors if we don't even know what it is. And it comes down to being as simple as that. I know what you're thinking. Hey Tortoise, before I continue on this video, what can I gain from this knowledge? Well, first of all, how about a more proper self-assessment of you and your design skills for your cube? Or how about looking at your cube without being biased? And being able to look at your own weaknesses in your design skills so you can improve your cube to be much better, giving you the opportunity to improve on your skill set. What is habitual behavior? How does it apply to designing our MTG cube? Well, first off, let's understand the definition of what habitual behavior is, and how it applies to us each individually. The definition for habitual behavior is doing something consistently, constantly, and or as a habit. Basically, second nature. It is a natural response to do something almost or completely impulsive by nature. It is also a form of an automated response and acts like routine behavior. It is behavior that people like us repeat because this behavior is easy, comfortable, and we find it rewarding. Our brains create shortcuts to remember patterns. They become and evolve to a part of our character. See, our brain will pick up a fluid pattern wherever it can when we work on something like deck building in Magic. The brain will create a shortcut to remember a pattern, to recognize said patterns, and form it into habitual behavior. Because patterns in nature are comforting and recognizable, conforming to the easiest shape possible, and the habitual traits are formed by the environment which it grows in. In nature, patterns are created in the easiest way possible as an object like a flower, developing and growing to conform to its environment. It will push a pattern in its design where it will be most convenient, because nature works in the laziest way possible, and our brains try to make hard work more lazy. With our cube being the flower and the cards within the cube is the environment we are forming with these patterns. And our brains are no different. As we work hard on something, such as our cube, our brains are doing everything possible to make the work easy, while looking for patterns to connect and reward us with. And it's trying to reward us with less work. And this is both good and bad for us. It is good because we become better at something. It is also bad because the more something becomes easier or becomes more of a habit, the less we actually think about it and the less we improve with quality. And as Magic players and as cube designers, we fall into this trap all the time. As Magic becomes more and more of a habit, the better we get at the game. The better we get at the game, the less we have to learn about the game. Well, that's how we feel about it. So ask yourself, what are some examples of habitual behaviors in Magic the Gathering? Well, let's start with the most obvious trait. First example I have is how you shuffle your hand when you're playing a game. You start by organizing cards in your hand, and you start moving cards around so your players don't realize what cards you're focusing on, and you start shuffling more and more, and it becomes a habit to read your cards and shuffle your hand constantly. So not only are you a better player and reading cards quickly and understanding what's going on, but you're already playing a mini game out of a habitual behavior. And the biggest offender that I'm listing for today's episode is color flavoring. We all have favorite colors in Magic the Gathering. We learn to love the emotions and responses of cards in our favorite colors. We latch on to synergies within these colors and the mechanics we connect with in these colors. We learn to run a certain number of certain cards of these colors, and we favor the win rates that we have with these colors. I know what you're wondering. You're asking, Tortoise, what is the point? We know these things already. Well, to answer your question, we are bridging to the meat of the topic. Now we are on to the focus of the episode. First, I have to mention, knowing about habitual behaviors expands beyond just what this episode is going to focus on. This topic is going to shed light on how to look at ourselves and our cube without being biased. Because we as people have a flaw with being biased and too proud with our own work. When we create something we worked hard on, we want to show it off and talk about it. We really just want positive feedback and exaltation. We want confirmation of how awesome we are. Because hard work deserves its own recognition. But a flaw we have as Magic players is not being humble and having a hard time taking criticism. Because our hard work as a cube designer costs money and time. So we feel that we deserve it. But I need to reiterate that we are flawed by ego. I have an example of this. I have a big flaw myself, and I have to admit to you, I'm not proud of it. You have to know, I am a filthy blue player. I love blue. I love adding blue to my decks. Blue is my strongest skill set in Magic the Gathering. If I can add blue when drafting and being able to focus on a certain archetype that is in blue, you bet it's happening. I'm going to do it because I favor blue too much. And this trait was very obvious when I first built my cube. My cube was focused on being a multicolored cube, but I started working with what I knew. And with everything I thought I knew, and working with everything I know, created, formed, and made, blue became the most powerful and highly picked color in the cube. See, by not paying attention to my habitual behaviors, the strongest color in my cube reflected off everything I knew as a Magic player, because it was part of my habitual behavior to not think or pay attention to the other colors as well as I did blue, and that in itself was problematic. And then there was red, the one color where I was weak in and didn't understand well enough to design. Because of this, red suffered the most in the cube, and that affected the entire cube design. And I just thought, that's how it worked in cubes, because a lot of people who own their own cubes have said, red sucks in cube. It's only good if you draft mono red. But it bugged me and peeved me to have a dead color like that in my cube. I needed to expand upon my habits of cube design and do some learning. Because as cube designers, we hate noticeable flaws. We really hate the lack of interactions in the cube and draft environment. But we love when people first pick and comment about how they love a card. So I went and talked to people that play and build red decks, and I really put a focus on the designs of red commander decks. Because people who build red commander decks know how to synergize within red singleton formats. So I improved on my red integration so red could be malleable and form-fitting in the cube, like the patterns you see in habitual nature. I know you're thinking, dude, that's just natural progression. Well, let me respond with, I didn't know what habitual behaviors were. See, it is easier to know what you're good at because you're just doing it. And it's hard to understand what you're bad at because you're not involved with doing what you're bad at. And you don't even think about it. And if you're not involved with something that you're bad at, how do you know it's bad? And how are you supposed to know it's good? You need to progress by knowing what you're bad at, and you don't know what you're bad at until you are involved with it. If you don't know what is bad, how are you supposed to recognize it? Especially when you are learning something new. And knowing your own personal habitual behaviors is a strong tool, because if you know what you're good at, it lets you assess what you're bad at before you start working on it, and lets you screw up less as you design it, causing less frustration in your work habits when it comes to the cube. Because knowing about habitual behaviors lets you see what is bad, so you can see your flaws without a biased nature. To know yourself better is to understand yourself as flawed. Because people who can admit that they are flawed want to do better. And people who don't think they are flawed don't know how to ask for help. And when someone is unaware of what habitual behaviors they struggle with, a person who can push themselves beyond their comfort zone will improve on their goals and create great success. If you remember earlier where I talked about habitual behaviors in nature conforming to fit its environment, this is something that reacts automatically if you know what a habitual behavior is or not. Knowing about your habitual behaviors lets you be aware of your cube's design environment and gives you the ability to shape the environment to control the designs. See, when I started designing my cube, I started designing my cubes as in decks, like the red deck, the green deck, the blue deck, the black deck, the colorless deck, and it wasn't really working because the blue was the strongest color in my cube. So I had to expand upon my habitual behaviors without knowing what they were, because learning about my bad habits and flaws was something that needed to be done. So now I am able to step back and ask, what do I want red to do in the cube? And what do I want red to represent in the cube? Because I became more aware to be able to see my cube as an environment of cards to synergize and harmonize together and go beyond the simplistic design thought of, this is just the red deck. And this brings us into the mindset in the world building aspect of the cube. Because of learning about my habitual behaviors, I was given the power to shape the drafting environment. And this opened up the door to start understanding the world building aspect in cube. My problem in red? It came down to that I didn't understand red at all when it came down to a singleton format or drafting. Red in general is tough to do in a singleton format, and I had a prejudice against red because I did not understand it. So like in real life, where you shouldn't hold a prejudice feeling because we don't understand it, I pushed myself to understand red so I can embrace its uniqueness. And through this, I was able to find both function and synergy in red to fit the entire cube. And the secret to this was, don't focus on a single color to be good by itself, but find a way for a single color to work with the rest of the cube. And knowing about habitual behavior and habitual nature opens up your eyes to see design flaws. Because things in nature with flaws don't know they have a flaw. And knowing about a flaw lets you fix a flaw. And when you work hard on perfecting a flaw, it becomes second nature. And that, in a tortoiseshell, is understanding habitual behaviors in the cube environment.
I'm an idiot!
Now, for our non-sponsored ad of the show. Are you ready to wield the Dragon Shield? Power creep is among us, and your precious cards must be played. But you don't want your cards to look played, frayed, or decayed. And this is no arcade. You're not dropping quarters. We are card hoarders. Our hobby costs money, that's not funny. So don't neglect your cardboard honey. Don't take chances or take second glances. Protect your beloved cards with one of the best sleeves on the market. I'm not fooling you.
I trust my expensive cube with Dragon Shield sleeves, and I have for more than 6 years. My cube has had these cards protected for 6 years with the same sleeves I bought 6 years ago. And I don't know any company who's been able to make that claim. This is my testimony.
So I ask again, are you ready to wield the Dragon Shield?
And for my next upcoming Commander Deck Tech, we are celebrating our 100 subscriber milestone with the upgraded Chulane Teller of Tales Commander Deck Tech. It's more than casual and twice as fun. You'll be traumatizing your friends with excessive amounts of triggers, and more triggers, while having a solid hand of control and go wide with big, fearsome creatures entering the battlefield that will dominate the game. Chulane Teller of Tales. Take casual fun to a new level. So make sure to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss out.
Badass.
You are watching Super Fast Tortoise.
Today on the top 10 tortoise cards of the show, we are going through my top 10 favorite cards from Modern Horizons 2. These are my personal choice cards, and I think they're all awesome. I am not including reprints on this list. I cannot do a top 20, because 20 cards would mean I'd be here forever. So I picked the top 10 cards for Cube and Commander that I personally love the most. This list is in no particular order, 1 to 10. I like them all in retrospective, and in their respective formats all the same. And we start right now. Starting with the one card that brought me back to the beginning era of my Magic the Gathering life. We have Cauldron Complete. This equipment is amazing as a creature equipment, being a living weapon germ forged off a classic 3-card combo from back in the day. It is a 5/5 hasty indestructible creature with trample, first strike, and whenever it deals combat damage to a creature, exile that poor monster from the battlefield. Cauldron Complete is new to Commander, is good in Cube, and a new toy to play with. Now on to our second card on the list, is the new and exciting Esper Sentinel, a 1/1 artifact creature that says, whenever an opponent casts their first non-creature spell each turn, you draw a card unless they pay X, where X is Esper Sentinel's power. Wow. Just wow. A Voltron style card for a Voltron style deck. This just got crazy fun. This Voltron style card is going to upgrade a lot of Voltron themes in Cube and Commander. They are getting a great toy. This card is simply amazing. It's not busted and not rusted. This card will fit in other strategies greatly. That's why it's on my list. My third card on this list is Just Damn! This is a good card, a spot removal kill spell turned board wipe. This is just too fun. It's good in flavor and it's hard to pass up. Commander players will love it, Cube players will want it. I mean, oh my god, damn! Now making headlines, taking the 4th spot on the top of the news, we have Rakdos Headliner. Rakdos Aggro Reanimator is getting a brand new toy, especially for Cube. This card should not be underestimated or underrated by no means. Costing a single red and a single black, this 2-drop 3/3 with haste and no real downside on it at all, Reanimator is going to be crazy with Rakdos. Wizards of the Coast pushed this devil to the next level. I mean, hell, this card is insane. Okay. I'm a sucker for enchantments, and Wizards of the Coast decided that they were going to impress me today. In the middle of the list, we have Sanctum Weaver. For a generic and a green, we have a 0/2 enchantment creature that has tap, add X mana of any one color, where X is the number of enchantments you control. I have a tear of joy rolling down my cheek as we speak. This card needs to be in a few of my commander decks, and in my cube, and in my life. Estrid the Mask will embrace this card with open arms. This card is nuts in the right builds, and I'm loving it. And on to the 6th card. Wizards is really trying to tear me up, and all make me cry in a sobbing manner with tears of happiness. We have Sithis Harvest's Hand. This 1/2 legendary enchantment creature is out of bounds. It's good as a commander, it's good in commander, and will be good in my cube. I mean, this enchantress is what we needed for these kind of formats who run enchantment themes. I can go on and on, but I digress. This card is amazing. Now, on to the 7th card that I love in this set. We have Dakin Shadowslayer. This planeswalker is no joke. He enters the battlefield with loyalty counters equal to the lands you control. This walker really scales up in the game. His +1 works with Reanimator by surveilling twice. His Neg 3 ability gets around indestructible nonsense creatures like Blightsteel Colossus. And his ultimate lets you put an artifact card from your hand or graveyard onto the battlefield. This card synergizes with 2 strategies and is a winner in my book, and I'm loving it. On our 8th card on the list, we have Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, a land that turns all lands into forests in addition to what they are. And this card is going to be good for the decks that need it, and the multicolored decks that want it. This card is nuts and amazing. And then there was Suspend. Suspend is a great card. This card is on the 9th spot. It can save a creature if you so desire, or remove a threat in time to win you the game. It exiles a creature and gives it Suspend too. This card is OP. Overpowered. Not much needs to be said about that. It works. And at the top of the list is a card Commander players needed more of. We have Search the Premises. This 4-drop white enchantment says, whenever a creature attacks you or a planeswalker you control, investigate. Hence, providing white with more card draw in a format that desperately needs it. This card will see play in not only enchantment decks, but in a lot of commander decks. This card is great. This card is going to push white to the next level. And guess what? We're loving it. And that, my creep, is the top 10 Tortoise cards for Cube and Commander from Modern Horizons 2. These are the cards I enjoy the most. And let me reiterate that there are way better cards in the set than some of my choices here. And that's okay. These cards in particular speak to me personally. And I thank you for watching today's episode. I personally appreciate all of you who make my channel what it is today. And until next time, play wise, my friends.
Are you finished? Let's go.